Arsenal, Man United, Man City and Chelsea all wish to sign Declan Rice this summer, according to reports over the last couple of days. So hopefully, for West Ham's sake, there's a bit of a bidding war on the horizon. But there's been plenty of speculation, lots of rumours surrounding Declan's future. So let's talk about those rumours. Now, last week, David Moyes confirmed there's a good chance that Declan Rice leaves West Ham United this summer, which comes as no surprise to Hammers fans anywhere. And to be honest with you, I don't think it comes as any surprise to any football fan. I think everybody's expecting Declan to leave this year. Last summer was a case of will he or won't he, but this summer it feels inevitable, and it's a case of where is he going, when's he going, and exactly how much is he going for. Because last week we had the reports that West Ham have put a £120 million price tag on Declan's head. However, they will also consider part exchange players as well. This morning, Arsenal are the team that are being linked to him. Mikel Arteta is going to be given a £200 million transfer budget because he's not had enough money to spend last summer or the summer before that. So he's going to get £200 million to spend this time round. And as part of that, he wants to sign Declan Rice and Caicedo from Brighton for £140 million, which, if I'm being honest with you, seems a little bit light. I don't think you're going to get both for £140 million. Now, Brighton with De Zerbi, he confirmed that it looks likely that McAllister and Caicedo will leave Brighton this summer, but they're away to do their third signing of the summer already. The season's not even finished yet, and Brighton have already signed 3 players. Basically, they've practically signed 3 players already. So Caicedo to Arsenal looks likely. Will they get Declan Rice as well? Do they need Declan Rice as well? Well, there's also rumours that Xhaka is set to leave Arsenal this summer, so I do think they probably do need 2 players in that midfield. So Declan Rice is one of them, and they've been favourites to sign Declan for quite some time now. So the reports are that they were looking to bid 70 million plus add-ons for Declan Rice, and there's other reports suggesting that they're going to bid 90 million for Declan Rice. I think the truth probably lies somewhere in the middle. If they are going to bid, that it be not quite as much as 90. It might come to 90 million with the add-ons. I guess both could be true. 70 million plus potential 20 million of add-ons, and it will be heavily incentivised around Arsenal winning trophies such as the Premier League, possibly the Champions League as well, making appearances for Arsenal, maybe becoming England captain, whatever those add-ons might be. But Arsenal are certainly interested in Declan Rice. Now, moving on to Manchester United. Yesterday it was suggested that Man United want him, and one player in particular they could use as part of the deal is Scott McTominay. We'll deal with McTominay in a second. As for Man U, I mean, it all depends on their takeover to some extent, but they are restricted by FFP regardless of who takes over at that club, which looks like it'll come to a conclusion in the next month or so. It's dragging on a little bit now, isn't it? But FFP is restricting them, and apparently they can only spend 100 million. And I say apparently because I don't know enough. I'm not a Man United fan. I don't follow them closely, but when I spoke to Beth from United Stand, she basically said we can only spend 100 million this summer net because of FFP. Now, we know Man United need a striker. They probably want Harry Kane, but they're looking at spending the bulk of the money on there. They're being linked to centre backs, they're being linked to goalkeepers at the minute. It looks like they're going to get Rabiot as the midfielder from Juventus on a free. Therefore, they probably wouldn't need Declan Rice. So the rumour for Rice to go to Man U, I have to be honest with you, I'm not believing it as such. I do think the Scott McTominay one is interesting though, because should Man U sign any centre midfielder really, he remains where he is in the pecking order. Obviously Sabitzer isn't going to be staying at Man United beyond the summer. They're not going to activate that. They're not going to buy him permanently. So they're one centre midfielder down, but they bring in another one. They're evens. Scott McTominay's had limited football under Ten Hag. Now, I'm a little bit biased, okay? I would love Scott McTominay at West Ham. And I think the problem for West Ham here is, though, and I'm doing my best to ignore the infrastructure at West Ham, because there's 2 huge things which is in speculation at the minute, which is very much going to decide how we go about our transfer business. First of all, we've got the manager. Who's going to be the manager next season? It looks like it'll be David Moyes. But the second of all, there's a lot of rumours that we're going to be bringing in a director of football. It feels a little bit late to do that. I have massive concerns about the timing of bringing in a director of football, but Scott McTominay come to West Ham under David Moyes, I think he would be excellent. Under the new manager, if we do have one, we don't know. But this is where I hate managers going into the last 12 months of his contract. I'll deal with that general video next week. But one example is this. How can we bring in players like Scott McTominay to play under David Moyes when Moyes has only got 1 year to go on his contract? The next manager along might not want Scott McTominay. It's frustrating, very short term. Anyway, as for Scott McTominay, I think he's an excellent player. I really, really do. I think if he leaves Man United and goes to a team not as big as Man United, I think he will excel. Being linked a lot to Newcastle, I think he'd be perfect for Newcastle as well. He's an upgrade on Sean Longstaff. He can do what Sean Longstaff does, and he can do it better. Now, I see Scott McTominay for Scotland a lot, and there's one or two games where there's a lack of... It feels like a lack of effort. It used to be that case. Same with Andy Robertson. There were some games for Scotland I'd look at. I mean, where's Liverpool's Andy Robertson? We don't see that for Scotland. In the last 12 months or so, I've stopped thinking that and I've stopped feeling that. It's changed now. And I've seen McTominay have really good games for Scotland at centre-back, in a back three. Not that I want him to play there for West Ham. But I've also seen him be excellent as a box-to-box midfielder, arriving late. And he scored 4 goals in the last 2 games for us. He used to be a striker for Man U, for the young team. He used to be a striker, so he's got that finish about him. I would love Scott McTominay at West Ham. I absolutely would love him. For me, it would all come down to the valuation. How much do Man U value Scott McTominay? That is the big question, because when these rumours come out, they miss out key parts about that, which is Man U want Declan Rice and they're willing to offer Scott McTominay. All right, but how much cash are they willing to offer plus Scott McTominay? Because if it's 50 million, I'm not really interested. Much as I love him, I wouldn't like that. But if it was 80 million in Scott McTominay, suddenly I'm thinking, hello, that's a bit of a deal. I wouldn't mind that at all. But Scott McTominay is not a replacement for Declan Rice. Scott McTominay is not that man. He is not the player to come in and do what Declan Rice is doing for West Ham. However, what McTominay is the player to come in and replace Thomas Souček. He's the player to come in and play alongside Lucas Paqueta with someone behind him. Because at Man United, I actually think he's been restricted sometimes. I think he's been played a little bit too deep with the shackles on. And him being a little bit more of a box-to-box player, I think you would get the best out of him. And I think at West Ham, we would get the best out of Scott McTominay. I actually think David Moyes would get the best out of Scott McTominay as well. There's some players in the Premier League you look at, you think, there's someone Moyes would love. On the other side, there's players that you think, no chance, forget it. But you can say that about every manager. Every manager in the Premier League, you could say that there's players that would really suit him, but there's also players that just don't even think about it. And Scott McTominay, I definitely put in the category that Moyes would love McTominay. I think McTominay would love David Moyes. And do you know something? I'm going to say this. Potential captain. We've got a captain problem next season at West Ham. I'm looking at the current squad of players that's left behind after Declan Rice. I'm unconvinced as to who takes that. Obviously, we've got Bon and Creswell are sort of the vice captains at the minute. Which one of them? I'm not convinced by either of them. There's big calls for a Gerd. I'm not convinced by a Gerd. I've discussed it in other videos. I don't feel like we've got a natural replacement for the armband for Declan Rice. I think Scott McTominay's got that bit of leadership about him. I've been very impressed with him in interviews, especially at Man United under Solskjaer. When things weren't going really well, he was one of the players that was actually willing to speak out. So yeah, Scott McTominay, yes please. But do I believe the rumours? Not really. Now for the next one, Manchester City. This was the big transfer rumour last week that Pep Guardiola really likes him and that Man City were to offer 70 million plus Calvin Phillips in return for Declan Rice. Do I believe it? Do you know something? I kind of do. I do believe this because Phillips hasn't worked out as such with the injuries and whatnot, and it was always a little bit of a, not a weird transfer, but it felt like a box-ticking transfer when Phillips went there. It was a bit like, would you have signed him if he wasn't homegrown? I'm not convinced they would have done. And he's had a handful of minutes, and that is it, right? And I think Phillips has got loads of ability, but he's just never available. He's completely unreliable. However, if you were to say to me next season West Ham would have a midfield of McTominay, Phillips and Paqueta, yes please, but that's impossible because you can't send Declan Rice to 2 places. But anyway, as for this rumour, I don't want it. I don't want Calvin Phillips at West Ham. Like I said, nothing against the player, it's just he's unreliable. Declan Rice, one of the many things to admire about him, he's never injured. Touch wood. We've hopefully got a final in a couple of weeks. Hopefully I haven't jinxed it. Declan Rice is never injured. Always available. His injury record is second to Bruno Fernandes, and that's it. Now and again he gets a sickness bug when he needs rotated, apparently, but he's never injured. we cannot just take a player out that we rely on to turn up every single week, as in physically and in form, and bring in a player that we're going to be praying is available. We've done that too often. We're doing that with Kurt Zouma. We've already got Kurt Zouma, who, when he's fit, he walks into the team, but you know he will not play 38 games a season in the Premier League. If you can get 28 games out of Kurt Zouma, you're doing well. We do not need another player in that starting 11 where you're hoping to get 28 games out of. That's a problem. You've already got an issue. Now, I don't mind Kurt Zouma. I've always said it, and I'll say it again. When a player is that good, I don't mind an injury-prone player. Someone that's good enough to walk in, but you can only have one per position, so you can't have another defender that's unreliable. And I know Calvin Phillips is a midfielder, but Calvin Phillips' job is to protect the back four. You don't want to be missing your centre-back and your defensive midfielder in a game because of injuries that you know that you're going to be missing. I think an attacking player, different story. Do I believe the rumour? Yes, but also the other rumours for the Man City, apart from that bit, this week was Pep really likes Declan Rice and sees him as a leader who can fill the void that is potentially going to be there from Gundogan leaving this summer. He's out of contract. He's expected to leave Manchester City. Looks like he's off to Spain. Obviously, Man City's captain, and he thinks Pep sees Declan as someone that can fill that void of leadership. Makes sense. Of course, you could. Does the big problem for Declan would be he's got the captain's experience, but he doesn't have the captain's experience at a big club. Let's be honest with you. West Ham's a big club, but Man City are a club that demands success, a club that demands trophies, silverware. We don't know if Declan Rice can do that kind of leadership yet, but he doesn't have to be the captain of Man City. He can go there, and there could be 2 or 3 people ahead of him in the pecking order for captaincy, but he would eventually become the Manchester City captain, just like Gundogan did. Company had it, Fernandinho had it, and then Gundogan's got it. There's no reason Declan Rice can't go in there and be the third in line for that captain's armband. So when he does get it, he's used to it, he's won some trophies, and this is the club he's guaranteed to win trophies at as well. And this is the big thing. Declan Rice wants to leave West Ham to go and win silverware. He's not guaranteed it at Arsenal. Is there any guarantee they win anything next season? There's not. Is there any guarantee Man United win anything? No. I would argue there's a better chance at Man U than Arsenal, though, but I think that's just because I rate Ten Hag highly. But the one club that can almost guarantee him silverware is Manchester City. But the final club is Chelsea. Now, this one seems unlikely, doesn't it? Just because of how much money they've spent, they're going to have to sell some players. But the fact is, they will be selling players this summer. So they will be raising capital. They will be a little bit flexible in terms of their FFP. But the rumours are based on Pochettino joining Chelsea. Now, he's expected to sign a contract with Chelsea any day now, a 3-year deal. And apparently Pochettino wants Declan Rice at Chelsea. He's the one that wants to bring him in. Again, you can see why. You can see why he'd want to do that. Get him in there next to Enzo Fernandez. That's your midfield sorted for, in theory, for ages. Kovacic looks like he could be on his way out. Conte looks like he's on his way out. Gallagher's up for sale. So there's going to be a reshuffle in the middle of the park for Chelsea, regardless of how much money they spent, how much players they brought in. It looks like they're probably going to have to bring in another centre midfielder. And we all know the lure for Declan Rice. Boyhood club, family's club, lives and gets to stay in London and be around his family. I appreciate you can apply that to Arsenal as well. But up until this season, it always felt like Chelsea was a likely destination for Declan Rice, and then Arsenal sort of become that club. So, do I believe that rumour? Kind of, I guess. But it's only because it's... If Declan Rice hadn't had a history with Chelsea, if Declan Rice's family weren't Chelsea fans, then I probably wouldn't believe it as much. But I think you do have to take those things into consideration. And weirdly enough, I feel more optimistic. That sounds like I want it to happen. I don't. But I feel more optimistic that Chelsea are possibly likely to win something next season than Arsenal, weirdly. Because I think Arsenal have shown that they'll dismiss the domestic cups. Understandably why. Whereas Chelsea, I think Pochettino, he needs to win something, I think, at Chelsea. If he comes into Chelsea, he needs to win something. Even if it's only the Carabao Cup, I think that will do. So he might get a little bit of success here. But I don't think that that's the trophies Declan Rice is chasing when he leaves West Ham. I think he's chasing 2. The Premier League title and the Champions League. Because that's why he's leaving. It's not money. When I saw the rumours to Arsenal, it's, we're going to bid this and they're going to offer Declan Rice 300 grand a week. I think it feels a bit unnecessary, really. Declan Rice isn't. If it was about money, Rice would have signed a new deal with West Ham a long time ago. Now, the one thing I will wrap up by saying, there's little pressure on West Ham to sell Declan Rice cheap this summer. Little pressure. The way Declan's handled it has been very professional. That's why I don't mind him going. He isn't kicked off. He's worked hard. He will win Ham of the Year. Hopefully, he'll lift that trophy in Prague and leave a West Ham legend. But he's got 2 years on his contract. Well, he's got one, but we've got an option for a further year. He's essentially got 2 years left on his deal. So if the maximum bid West Ham get this summer is 70 million, I hope we reject it, because we can get 70 million next summer. Someone will pay 70 million for Declan Rice with a year to go on his contract. So are we under pressure? Not necessarily. But in terms of, if we do go get this director of football and you want to give him a bit of money, well, there you go. But my concern is there's a lot of major changes for West Ham this summer. Potentially the manager, potentially the director of football, potentially a change of ownership, change of captain, and your best player leaving. And then you've got all the out of contract players as well. There's a lot of major changes at this club. This season has shown that we need stability. And the last thing that we're going to get this summer is stability. And the biggest loss is going to be Declan Rice. The biggest headache is going to be replacing Declan Rice. And the easiest thing for West Ham to get wrong this summer is wasting the Declan Rice money, regardless of how much it is. Anyway, there's your Declan Rice transfer rumours, my brief opinion about them all. And yeah, I'm ready for the criticism about Scott McTominay. But you know something? I've always promised you I'll be honest. Even if I get it wrong, I don't care about getting it wrong. I'll just give you my honest opinion. But Scott McTominay, excellent football player, and I would love him at West Ham. If you enjoyed this video, my Scott McTominay opinion hasn't put it off, please do drop a like on the video by clicking the thumbs up. Subscribe to Hammers Chat. Myself and Gons will be back later on tonight. Double upload back tonight with our Alkmaar preview. Will West Ham make the Conference League final? We'll discuss it way later. We'll catch you then.